It's Mock Draft Monday, just a couple short weeks from the NFL Draft 2023. It's time for the Peacock my mock draft, all 31 picks in the first round, and some trades that I think are very likely to happen on draft day coming up right now.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. Here we go. Mock Draft Monday, Matt. And it's a doozy. I got a little mock draft here with trades, and I can't wait. And I'm really liking what I'm seeing from the National Football League in the last week or so. And I really do think that the chalkiness that we would start to see in mock drafts after the combine is going to get blown up at some point at the very top of the draft. And so I don't know what it's going to be exactly. I've got some ideas of what that could be here in this mock draft, but it always happens. What's it going to be? And how soon does one pick destroy everybody's mock drafts?
I love it. Peacock mock. Let's dig in, man. I mean, much to talk about. There's a little bit of news, some signings around the league. We'll get to those when those teams pick, too. And kind of just a real brief thing. But I want to hear your thought process on all this. And I love that there's trades involved. That makes it takes it up a notch, you know?
I always do trades. You got to have trades because there's going to be trades and you're going to be wrong anyway. So why not throw trades in there? Because,
right.
It really helps you put need to value in some spots and, better fits in your mock draft instead of just throwing guys in a spot that doesn't really feel right when you're doing one of these things and you're projecting things out. And right, so the Ravens and the Titans busy with some signings here over the weekend that we'll get to when those picks are up. But we got to start with the Panthers. They moved up to pick number 1, Matt. And my thought process here is everybody who watched the tape, everybody before that trade up says Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the draft, and all of a sudden the Panthers trade up, and it's like, nope, it's a different quarterback. I'm not buying it. Bryce Young is my number 1 quarterback here for the Carolina Panthers at number 1.
So from what I understand, I need to double check this, but Vegas odds had Stroud as the far and away leader when the trade happened. Well, I think it's starting to become almost 50-50. And I can understand it. That's a tough decision. I mean, neither one is Andrew Luck or Lawrence coming out. I mean, what flavor ice cream do you like? I'm fine with it. And what's interesting to me isn't necessarily who they pick at 1, but what ramifications that has with the next pick, which is, I think, very interesting. And take it away.
Yes, and this is where things get fun here in this mock draft. We saw a very Houston plugged-in analyst in Lance Zierlein have something similar happening. Mine's different because, to me, Will Anderson is the top non-quarterback in this class. I don't think it's close. I think it's a different tier from Tyree Wilson, despite Tyree Wilson's arm length. If it wasn't for arm length, what would Tyree Wilson have over Will Anderson? And to me, the answer is really, a little better speed to power. That's about it.
Yeah.
But just not as good of a football player. And when I try to get into the head of DeMeco Ryans and the Houston Texans and how they might build things and what DeMeco might have taken from his time with the San Francisco 49ers, what really set the 49ers team off in 2019? Well, it was drafting a stud edge rusher that was ready to play early in his career in Nick Bosa at number 2. So I've got Will Anderson going to, not quarterback, I got Will Anderson, the pass rusher, going to the Houston Texans at pick number 2 here to jumpstart that defense. And I really think there are some similarities with Nick Bosa and Will Anderson in them as prospects, how ready they are to play leaders. And they're just such easy picks. And I think there's some analysts out there and some teams that might be overthinking this, putting players above Will Anderson. It's Will Anderson for me all day here. I love it. And there's other opportunities for the Texans to figure out quarterback. They don't have to figure it out draft 1, day 1 of a new regime.
Yeah, and something that's bothered me really for the last month or so of reading mocks, which is related. Most people, of course, have the Texans having a quarterback at 2. But it seems like very few have the Texans drafting a defensive lineman at 12. So The way that this team is built from their head coach, they are going to stress D-line as much as anyone that's not named the Niners and, the Niner Eagle level of it. So if you can get the best D lineman at this draft at 2, and then figure we'll get to what they do with the rest of the draft, that makes a lot of sense to me.
And in the end, all of these teams, you don't draft the quarterback unless you love him. If Bryce Young was their number 1 quarterback and he's not there for him at 2, go get the guy that you think is the best player. And then there's the other extra bit with CJ Stroud and his agent, David Mulugeta, who is the agent for Deshaun Watson. And maybe there's some bad blood there and how things were done. And maybe you don't want to marry yourself to that. And so I think there's multiple reasons that this could happen. And it's not as chalky with quarterbacks. And I've seen too many like quarterbacks 1 through 4. Is it really going to happen that way? I don't think this is the greatest quarterback class of all time for it to go quarterback. And I think there could be some movement and some quarterbacks going high. But I'm going Will Anderson to the Texans to start that thing off for DeMeco Ryan's defense.
Do you think if Young were there, they would just take him though?
That's sort of the vibe I get. Is that's their guy. If he goes 1, then they have other options.
Okay. And Will Anderson be a great quote consolation prize, especially when you have another pick. You have a lot of draft capital at your fingertips anyways.
More on that Texans team building when they get back on the clock here. But pick number 3, I've got a trade. And this is an easy one. I don't see a team like the Texans or the Titans really ponying up what it'll take to go all the way up to pick number 3. We're talking multiple picks for future years through 2025. The Panthers were willing to do it to go up to number 1. Would a team be willing to do it now that only 1 quarterback is gone at 3? Potentially, but I do have a trade here, and it's just the Colts making sure that they get their guy and going up 1 spot with the Arizona Cardinals for CJ Stroud. I think that's one of the better fits is Colts and Stroud in this draft, and they don't have to give up a ton. They could give up their pick at 35 in the 2nd round and then maybe get a late 3rd back because the Cards have a couple of 3rd rounders just to make it work. Maybe throw a 3rd rounder at them, whatever it is to go up 1 spot. When the Bears traded up 1 spot in 2017 for Mitch Trubisky, they gave up a 3rd round pick in the current draft, a 4th round pick, and then a future 3rd. So something like that, where you're giving up a mid pick, pick swaps, something to make the Cardinals feel good about going down 1 spot, getting the guy they were going to draft at 3 anyway. And you feel good knowing you get your guy if you're the Colts, and you can sort of thwart any of those other attempts that they might be teams coming up in front of you to get Stroud.
I think this is a win-win in terms of trade. First off, as you said, Arizona's going to take the same guy, and they just get a little bit of sugar on top. Great. Perfect. And they're in great shape. And the guy they need fits their biggest needs as well for the Cardinals. And I think Stroud would definitely be the Colts' number 1 quarterback. I think they do want a bigger bodied guy. I don't think Young is for the Colts.
Number 4, that means the Arizona Cardinals drop down 1 spot. This is one of the most difficult picks for me. So Will Anderson off the board. Tyree Wilson would be in consideration here. But, the elephant in the room is Jalen Carter. Right. So I had 2 thoughts with Jalen Carter in this mock draft just because there's so much unknown. Either you place him where he should go, which is right now, or he falls.
Or he falls.
Like we're talking, maybe pick 10. I know there's the conversation about Drew Rosenhaus, Jalen Carter's agent, only meeting with top 10 teams. Does that mean he has got a guarantee from the team picking 10 who has a couple of his Georgia teammates? I buy that in the Philadelphia Eagles. So,
well said, yeah.
Maybe big brother, little brother thing with Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean on that defense. And do they vouch for him? And will they be able to look after him? Do the Eagles feel better? They got extra picks. They're riding high with their team building and they don't have a lot of needs. Can they take that shot with Carter at 10? I could see that being a landing spot. Or you're talking falling all the way into the 20s or even out of the 1st round. But if there really is that many red flags, then he might be in for a deep fall. But if not, then you're the Cardinals and you just draft him right now. So I've got Jalen Carter. I don't know. I'm going to plug him in here to the Cardinals at pick number 4. He would be the best player on the board for them if they're comfortable with him. And, great fit for John. Speaking of the Eagles, that defensive scheme coming over to Arizona, that 5-2 look and getting those defensive tackles is really important. So it's a nice fit for the defense and the player is really good. Are they comfortable in Arizona? You're not drafting him in Miami where he might get in more trouble going out doing things. Arizona, he might be able to have a little laid back lifestyle. It's not Las Vegas. Cardinals going Jalen Carter here, and I just don't know where to put him. But if you take the other stuff out and they're comfortable, then this is the pick.
I mean, as an unbiased analyst, I would rather see Carter land in Philly, as you mentioned, or Seattle, just because they have better established cultures, a history of winning, veterans, et cetera, or coaches. But if you're the Cardinals and you get what I think is the best player in this whole draft at 4 with a D line that's a disaster, great. And you picked up some picks.
Tyree Wilson goes number 5 to the Seattle Seahawks. And, again, it's like, well, I see Jalen Carter at 5. It's like, well, if a team's willing to take him at 5, they're probably willing to take him at 4. And he's a better prospect. So that's why I got Carter in front of Tyree Wilson here. And, still need some defense there on that Seattle Seahawks front. They did a lot of work on the offensive side of the ball. Really great draft last year. Next, Matt. We have a trade at pick number 6. So that's the top 5. Bryce Young, Will Anderson, CJ Stroud to moving up 1 spot Colts. Then you got Jalen Carter 4 to the Cardinals and Tyree Wilson 5 to the Seattle Seahawks. Pick number 6. There is a trade, Matt. We'll get to the rest of the Peacock mock here on Mock Draft Monday next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by BetterHelp. You ever had problems, finding that new you? It can be a lifelong process, really getting to know yourself and how you change throughout the years, not only the changing environments that you are in, especially because we're always growing. And hopefully you're growing and trying to change for the better throughout your life. It's a process, and therapy can absolutely help you get there and figure out that new you and that lifelong process of growing and learning. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding. Because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk through things. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and just suit your schedule. You're not driving in traffic after work trying to get to this appointment. You can do it on your time in the way that you want to. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched to a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time at no additional charge. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Here we go. We got a trade, Matt. Pick number 6.
Yeah.
And so putting my DeMeco Ryans hat on here and talking about how the 49ers were built and what lessons maybe DeMeco Ryans might have learned from that and what Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans are trying to put together there. They went with defense. They went practical with the second pick in the draft to build that thing. Now I have them moving up, and I have them moving up for a quarterback. And when the 49ers in 2017 decided to build the thing around defense, they drafted, a defensive lineman at 3 when maybe they should have gone big at quarterback, but they didn't have an extra pick to go get that quarterback. And the team that ended up going and getting a quarterback in the Kansas City Chiefs loves it. And it was a quarterback that was super talented that nobody quite knew what to do with. And that's what the Texans are doing here is they're doing both. They're going and getting their Nick Bosa at number 2, and they're going to go up and get hopefully what becomes their Lamar Jackson, their
Josh Allen,
yeah, right? Their
franchise guy,
Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if that's a great comp for what Anthony Richardson is, but they go up. They don't have to pay the price of 3 first-round picks. They've got that early second-round pick that might be enough to get them up to number 6 with the Detroit Lions, or maybe a future first, which they still have 2 of those as well. So you swing for the fences here after going practical. And I think for the Texans, if you polled most Texans fans right now, you said, okay, it's going to cost you a total of 3 first-round picks. You get the best pass rusher in the draft in Will Anderson, and you get this lottery ticket in Anthony Richardson at quarterback. I think most of them would feel good about that.
I would too. And frankly, the more I study Richardson, the more I like him. I really think there's a chance he's a superstar. And I was about to say the same thing, especially for the Texans. I mean, the Texans need stars. I mean, they need building blocks. I mean, foundational players, dudes to put on the billboard, and they get 2 of them here. I would rather have Anderson and Richardson than Stroud, Addison, somebody like that, or even a Van Ness and an extra first-round pick. No doubt in my mind.
Yep, I totally agree there. So use that power that you have with the extra draft picks, and sky's the limit with Anthony Richardson. Doesn't have to play right away. You can start plugging him in halfway through his rookie season. There's no pressure on him to win right away with the Houston Texans, and you start building that thing right. So I like what I got going on with the Houston Texans here, and I like it for the Lions to move back from 6 to 12. They might be drafting from the same pool of players either way.
Yeah, it's good for them. Yeah, absolutely.
Next is the Las Vegas Raiders, and they've got a lot of holes to fix. And I think this is where they could either pluck the first offensive lineman off the board or the first defensive back off the board. And those are both huge needs for me. And for me, they've got left tackle figured out, so they don't have to force anything with Peter Skoronski. They go with the best guy on tape, the best offensive lineman in the class, plug him in wherever they want, probably at left guard, and that is Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern to help the Las Vegas Raiders up front.
Yeah, there's a couple of these O-lines, the Titans come to mind as well, where if you have numerous holes, Skoronski's my top target. I mean, like you said, there's 4 spots he can help you out in that Raiders line. Perfect.
Next up, the Atlanta Falcons was a difficult team for me, and I went with one of the risers in this class and somebody that might surprise people how high he goes, because when you put his production with what he is as a prospect and how big he is and how fast he ran the combine and good agilities as well, and how powerful he is off the edge, and then put him in a multiple defense like the Atlanta Falcons run at pick number 8, I like Lucas Van Ness here out of Iowa to the Falcons. He could play anything from just straight defensive end, getting after quarterbacks, to playing inside, 5 technique there in an odd front. So I like the fit of Lucas Van Ness in Atlanta.
Me too. Just give me disruptive frontline players on that defense, as many as I can. I don't even care what position they play.
And it's amazing how many teams, especially the teams that need to win more games, need defensive linemen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you go to the end of the first round, those teams that are in the playoffs, they don't need as many defensive linemen as the bad teams. It's pretty interesting.
Pretty important position. That's why they're there, right?
Yep,
no question about it. Yep.
Chicago Bears, after trading down from number 1, are at pick number 9. I'm going Paris Johnson Jr. Love the fit, love the athleticism. I love the upside there for Paris Johnson. You plug him in and let him go and help protect Justin Fields and your star quarterback there.
Yeah, I think every Bears fan would say, sure, I'll trade you 9 for Paris Johnson right now. Cool.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. Devin Witherspoon is who I have going to the Philadelphia Eagles. I know they brought back Bradbury and Slay, but I think either one of them would not be a long-term solution there. And you lost CJ Gardner-Johnson. So you could have Witherspoon, who's scrappy, playing in the slot in year 1, and then eventually, replaces Slay on the outside. And his tape is just so good. And, he might not be the biggest guy, but ran really well at the pro day. I love Devin Witherspoon. I think he's the top corner in this class, despite his lack of size. And, the rich get richer here with the Philadelphia Eagles with 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, and I have no qualms with a corner not going in the top 9, but Witherspoon and Gonzalez aren't going to fall much farther than that.
Absolutely.
These guys are coveted. Yeah.
Yep. And pick 11 is the Tennessee Titans. I'm going Broderick Jones here. I think offensive linemen are going to go high. I think defensive linemen are going to go high. In fact, I was kicking myself with how far some of the defensive linemen fell in this class, because I was like, man, I feel like they should be going higher. I couldn't find some great spots for some people, but Broderick Jones here, just the upside, and Paris Johnson and Broderick Jones, if you just explain them as prospects, they're really not all that different. So those could go in any order, especially with Skoronski maybe being guard, not tackle. Those are clearly the top 3 offensive linemen in this class. They could go in probably any order. This is the order I have them, but I just can't see the offensive linemen that are that talented that could be blindside protectors falling that far. And Broderick Jones in the end could be the best of all of them, but maybe has the most boom or bust as well. But I just love how he moves, how he gets out of his stance. He moves like a different dude.
Oh, he does. I think he has the highest upside of these first-round offensive linemen, kind of as you mentioned.
Yeah, all the athleticism, all the length, everything you could want from a ball of clay. Christian Gonzalez is going number 12 to the Detroit Lions, and he might be the guy I've plugged in at number 6 for them. So I love the trade down to the Lions and get a player in the same grouping that they would have had anyway, but they stay in the top 15 to get one of the, the true first-round talents in this class, which Christian Gonzalez is one of them. And I know they did some work with corner, so that's one of their needs in the offseason, but none of them were long-term fixes. Christian Gonzalez is one of the long-term answers there.
And he's an outside prototypical traits guy. Sutton's not that player. Again, if you can move down and get one of the top 5 defensive players in this draft for the Lions, sign me up. Yeah.
New York Jets on the clock at pick 13. This was a difficult pick.
This is a diner pick all day long, man.
I wanted them to I wanted them to draft one of those offensive linemen, and I didn't think anybody else was worth it here at pick 13. So what I did was went with your guy out of Pitt in Kalijah Cansey, defensive tackle, plug him in next to Quinnen Williams, and just go get after quarterbacks. Keep a strength up front. And I know he's very different, and you can move him around and do some different things with Kalijah Cansey, but he's such a good player, and I don't know where he's going to go, but I liked him here at 13 to the New York Jets.
Well, we know who their head coach is, where he comes from. When in doubt, Niners roots. Just give me some kind of disruptive defensive lineman, and we'll figure it out.
Pick 14, we got the first wide receiver off the board. That is Jackson Smith-Njigba going to the New England Patriots that need more firepower, whether it's Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi throwing passes. They need a quarterback they need some receivers that can actually make plays there, and just a really ho-hum group of pass catchers. They got to add the top talent in the draft at wide receiver here in Ohio State's Jackson Smith-Njigba. And to be honest, Matt, the more I watch these wide receivers, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's the only wide receiver that goes in the first round. I think he's clearly the best one. And I think there's a lot of second, third round types at wide receiver that, maybe late round one, but I think he's clearly wide receiver 1.
100%. And I think he would lead the Patriots in receiving next year immediately.
Yeah, plug and play. And I think he fits in everything the Patriots have always liked to do at wide receiver too. Put him in the slot, put him outside, do whatever, and he can make plays for you.
Mac Jones would say, "Thank you very much. I could really use somebody like that. Move the chains guy, catch a lot of balls." Right.
Right. In a sort of, just throw to him all the time. A Cooper Kupp type, player for them is the way I would use Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Well, I love him. I think he's far and away the number 1 receiver.
Green Bay Packers. Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama. And
very Packer-like pick.
Yeah. They've got some nice pieces on the outside, but he could come in right away and he could play nickel. Darnell Savage going in the last year of his deal. He could play strong safety. He could play free safety. He's just such a versatile player that you're going to find a spot for him. And he's such a good player. He's such a sound player, and he could just walk right in, start playing in the slot, and then you worry about his long-term position. If it's free safety, strong safety, whatever it is, he could fit both of those for the Packers. He could do either one of those right away too. I just love the player that he is and how good he is and how good of a tackler he is. Yeah, and that Packers defense should be better. Maybe that's what they need is a Brian Branch on the back end and
glue guy.
Yeah, glue guy for sure for that Packers defense.
Yep. I think that's very much a Packers pick. They almost always go defense in the first round, and he can do a lot of stuff.
This was a tough one for me, Matt, because I wanted this guy to go to Pittsburgh, but he went.
Everyone around here wants Joey's son to come back. Yeah,
Joey Porter Jr. I got him going 16, one pick before the Steelers. Out of Penn State, cornerback, long press, corner. He's a perfect fit, exactly what they need in Washington. And these corners aren't going to last too much longer, so need meets value here for Washington at 16.
Yeah, I mean, with the D line they have, you get a press man, beat you up at the line of scrimmage corner. That could really do wonders for their pass defense.
All right, next, let's finish up the rest of the first round, starting with those Pittsburgh Steelers who are on the clock at pick number 17 next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel. It's Major League Baseball season. Talking home runs and no hitters and double plays, they're all back. Saves, holds, whatever it is in your that you're excited about wagering on, you can find those at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. No better place to get in on the Major League Baseball action. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back. Whatever your first bet is, up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if that first bet doesn't win. So don't miss your chance to get that no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. We're talking draft props, which are so much fun, and more of those all the time. NFL futures, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, and of course, Major League Baseball all summer long. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Okay, Matt, Pittsburgh Steelers at pick 17. I do have them going corner, a very different corner than Joey Porter, just blazed 4 threes. Yeah. Deontay Banks out of Maryland. So roast me on the pick to the Steelers. What do you think about Deontay Banks as a fit for Pittsburgh at 17?
I can't roast you. I think it's a very real possibility. I slightly prefer Porter. He's not there. Of guys that are available, if I'm the Steelers GM, I would be torn in this situation between Banks and Brian Brisset, especially with the 32nd pick in your back pocket. It's such a deep corner draft. Maybe you get a suitable one there. I don't know if you knew this when you made the pick, but the Steelers have a big-time Maryland pipeline. Dino Tomlin, Coach T's son, played at Maryland and knows Deontay very well.
I did not know about the Maryland pipeline, but I have noticed that the Steelers do like their tooled up defenders. And they do like guys with, height, weight, speed, and Banks has a whole lot of speed.
Yep. And they need a good outside corner in a bad way. That's their number one need to me.
What position do you think Dan Campbell would want to draft?
Right.
He could mold the player for himself. I've got the first tight end off the board in what could be a late first round into the second round run of tight ends in this draft. I've got Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame, a wide tight end. He will block you. He can be a target hog of a chain moving tight end as well. And I think he's a very Dan Campbell-y type of player. I got to go 18 to the Lions.
I would bet that's the Lions' number one tight end.
I could absolutely see that for sure, especially
with
what they got going on right now with speed on the outside. I think that's a perfect fit. Obviously, no more Hawkinson there in Detroit.
Yep. Good one.
This was one of the players I considered for the Steelers was Darnell Wright out of Tennessee, big hulking right tackle. And for the Bucks, I think it's just a perfect fit. You plug in the rookie Darnell Wright at right tackle, and you move Tristan Wirfs, who you're gonna have to pay a whole bunch of money anyway. Pay him to be a blindside left tackle, and there's no reason why Wirfs couldn't do that. I think that's a solid move for the Bucks at pick 19 here.
Yeah, and I don't know that Wright falls much further than this. I mean, I think he has really good tape. Actually, the next guy, too, to pull back the curtain, O'Cyrus Torrence. I think Wright and Torrence, their only negatives to me are he's a pure guard, Torrence, and he's a pure right tackle, Wright. Other than that, they're highly coveted players that are starters from day one.
Right, and I think there is a little gap before Wright, before that, that fourth offensive lineman. But I think Wright is so good. And by the way, the number 2 pick in the draft, Will Anderson, was his best game playing against him. He's got size, but he can pass protect as well. And so teams at the back half of the first round are falling all over themselves probably to draft Darnell Wright. And then I got O'Cyrus Torrence, the best, pure guard, depending on where you put Skoronski in this class. And he just fits what Seattle likes. Big and tough and nasty. And they have they did a really good job getting bookend tackles in the last draft, but they've got a need on the inside. Torrence is a perfect fit. And these offensive linemen are going to go higher than I think a lot of people expect.
Yeah, I do too. I think Torrence is a surefire first round pick. I think he's very safe.
Got another trade here, Matt. And this is the Buffalo Bills going up to get who might be the best player in the draft on some team's board. Regardless of position, that is Bijan Robinson, running back out of Texas. In the madness, Buffalo, get yourself a running back for the love of God. And who knows, maybe with this trade up with the Los Angeles Chargers, you send Cook their way, who'd be a nice little fit to play with Austin Eckler. So, maybe that's a possibility there. But get yourself your workhorse back in Buffalo. They've been doing weird stuff at running back for years now, and go get your guy, get up in front of the Cowboys, get up in front of some of these other teams. Once you get into the 20s, I think that's the Bijan area, and the Buffalo Bills don't have a ton of needs. Go get yourself a running back. Even though it's too high for running backs, I think the Bills are the best fit for Bijan here.
And they signed Harris from the Patriots, fine, but that wouldn't change my tune at all about getting a guy like Bijan.
Yeah.
You got to save Allen's career, take some wear and tear off him, and it makes me crazy that you're a really good football team that wants to host playoff games in Buffalo. It's not exactly Arizona or Texas weather-wise. You need to run the football with power.
And James Cook is not that.
He's not that. He's a different kind of player.
Right. And Bijan can do everything James Cook can do, but also be your run the ball in December back.
Exactly. Right.
So originally I did this mock. I redid it because the Baltimore Ravens, Matt, signed Odell Beckham. And I don't know if that means that Lamar Jackson is coming back. That's the feeling I get from all of this but they gave him a lot of money. And so no more Quentin Johnston to the Baltimore Ravens at 22. I've got them going with an edge, Nolan Smith. And I know they've drafted a lot of edges recently, but they still don't really know what they have with all of those guys. So between Owe and Ojabo, who was a redshirt injury player out of the last draft that they drafted in the second round. And then you got Nolan Smith now, who's a different guy than both of them with 4.3 speed, ridiculous, coming off the edge, can be a stand-up guy, can do a lot of things for your defense. You can put him off ball as well. keep those guys in a rotation. Eventually, you're going to hit with one of these stud edge rushers or multiple of these edge rushers that are all very different for the Baltimore Ravens. They've been trying to fix that position for a while, and just keep plugging away at it, and you'll get it.
Yeah, and let's talk more Odell tomorrow. Frankly, I think they gave him too much money, but I understand the logic. I think there will be some ripple effects. Maybe we'll even know more tomorrow.
Yeah, we might learn more about Lamar too.
Yeah, but I think Nolan Smith has Ravens written all over him. High character guy, super versatile, position of need. I like this fit a lot.
And this is the area for Will Levis as well. Let's say Lamar is on his way out. Maybe Will Levis is a pick by the Baltimore Ravens at the end of round 1. I couldn't put Will Levis in
maybe
the
top Bucs 10. Even, right.
Yeah, the Buccaneers could be one, in this area, maybe even 18, with the second pick for the Lions, the second pick for the Seahawks.
Right.
Yes, 18 to 20 something is probably, I think, the Will Levis zone, but I've got him going. Something we talked about last week, Matt, on the podcast. I've got him going here to a really nice situation.
That's great
the
Minnesota
for him. Vikings, where you can sit behind Kirk Cousins, who's going into the last year of his reworked contract. And there is a connection with Liam Cohen, who was Will Levis's former offensive coordinator at Kentucky, who worked with Vikings head coach O'Connell with the Rams in the past. Yeah. And that was his best season in 2001 with Kentucky. Now Liam Cohen is actually back at Kentucky after going back to the Rams. So he went Rams, Kentucky, Rams, now Kentucky again. And so a lot of inside knowledge of the offense, terminology, everything. I think it's a perfect fit with sitting for a year behind Kirk Cousins, and maybe a lot of what is wrong with Levis's evaluation and his scouting report. I think a lot of that could be helped by someone like Kirk Cousins, and
good point.
The physical talent that Will Levis has. This is where the fall ends for Levis, 23 to the Vikings.
I love it. I mean, at 23, I think it's well worth it. Top 8 or pick or so. I think it's too pricey for him. I have some doubts about Levis, but this would be a great landing spot for him, an ideal guy to build around. Good spot.
Jacksonville Jaguars going DeJuan Jones here. What does Trent Baalke like more than anything, Matt?
Yep, size and length, huh?
Yeah, arm length. And there's nobody bigger. And my comp for DeJuan Jones has always been Trent Brown, who Trent Baalke drafted when he was a GM of the San Francisco 49ers, who, 6'8", 350, just crazy long arms, and ended up being a not only a right tackle, but a left tackle in the NFL. DeJuan Jones could be that guy as well for the Jaguars, and, help out your boy, help out your franchise quarterback, keep him as clean as possible, and work on that offensive line.
I have not seen that connection in any mock I've seen, but I like it quite a bit, and I think that adds up exactly as you said. Yeah.
And again, these offensive linemen, especially late round 1, a lot of teams need offensive linemen. They're going to go.
Tackles, yeah.
If you can be a starting caliber tackle in the NFL, it's a round 1 position. New York Giants wide receiver Quentin Johnston. I don't love this wide receiver class. This is only the second wide receiver going. I only have 3 wide receivers going in the first round, and if I had to put the over under, I'd probably put it at 3. And I've seen a lot of mocks with a lot of different wide receivers. I think there's a chance that only one ends up going in the first round, and especially in the top 20 picks. Quentin Johnston here, I think need meets value for the New York Giants at 25.
Yeah, they need a big outside receiver. If it was a slot, if it was Addison, I would eject in a big way. This guy makes all the sense in the world. He's going to block in the run game, things like that too.
Dallas Cowboys.
Dalton
Kincaid, a tight end out of Utah. So yeah, help out your quarterback there.
Another weapon.
Dalton Schultz. Yep.
I mean, Brandon Cooks is a nice addition. Lamb operates out of the slot. He's not a traditional tight end, but he's just another weapon. Move him all over there. That'd be a tough offense to defend with him.
And after the trade down, I got the Los Angeles Chargers going Zay Flowers, who might have been a consideration at 21. But I love Zay Flowers because of what his profile is and how different he is than Mike Williams. And then when you look ahead to a roster, without the guy who's been, your monster out of the slot for so long there in Los Angeles, and I think Zay Flowers could be the next guy there. And so for that fit, I love it. Athleticism, move him around, a movable piece for that offense. And, they're going to need to replace maybe a Hall of Fame receiver there at some point. So he can work out of the slot and be that guy for them in the future. Zay Flowers to the Chargers at 27.
He's my second favorite receiver. So I think he would be exactly what they need. They need juice. They need youth. They need cheaper guys. Allen and Williams are now huge cap hits going forward too. So they need a little more juice in that offense for sure.
And, it's funny because I would have given them Kincaid if he was still there too. So who operates in a similar part of the field, right? And, you're not going to find maybe another Keenan Allen, but it's so valuable to
manufacture it differently.
Have that guy, that blanket that they know they can throw to, that can work out of, certain splits in the offense and be moved around. So I would like Kincaid there. He was gone. I like Zay Flowers sort of in that same role. You can move him around. He can work with Allen and then replace Allen eventually as the slot guy.
Love it. And in the meantime, he's a deep threat, bubble screen guy, a lot different than Williams and Allen, immediately too. I mean, juice, just give me juice.
We got to wrap up this mock draft here. The Cincinnati Bengals on the clock at 28, and the tight end run continues with Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State. And I like a tight end being added to the group. Hitting the seam when you got what Jamar Chase and T. Higgins can do on the outsides. I mean, that's just scary for defenses. You just got to play everybody back all the time who's going to open everything up underneath if they want to take that candy too.
He's my number one tight end, not by a wide margin, but he would be really a great fit here in that I don't know that you're going to be able to keep Boyd and Higgins long-term either. Maybe 2 years from now, he's your number 2 option. I mean, that's not crazy talk.
This is a tough one for me because the Saints was an easy pick for me to make with Miles Murphy still in the board out of Clemson. I wanted Murphy to go higher. I think when you're running 4.59 at 260 pounds, 6'5", there's some holes in his game as a prospect, but I think he'd go much higher. I just didn't really find a good landing spot for him. But Miles Murphy, this is an easy pick if he's still there late in the first round to the Saints.
And they love the big edges, the 275-pound type guys, and they would run to the podium for him, I think, at 29. Your guy almost, next one, I think, to be honest with you.
Yeah, your guy almost got to you that you might consider at pick 17 for the Steelers, and he was 2 picks short of making it to 32. But that's Brian Peacock out of Clemson, defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman. I've got him going at 30 here to the Philadelphia Eagles to help replace some lost players, Javon Hargrave, and they used a lot of defensive linemen, so they're going to keep that pipeline going. I almost went D-line for them at 10, but I saved it for pick 30 in the first round.
It seems like opinions are all over the place on Brazil, but I can't imagine he would get past 30. I mean, with their love affair for defensive linemen, he would be an easy pick.
And to finish up round 1, pick 31, because there's not 32 picks this year because the Miami Dolphins got theirs taken away. Adebawore, I believe, is the proper
you nailed it, right?
To pronounce his name. Adebawore. You leave out some of the syllables there in his last name. It makes it a lot easier to say Adebawore. So he's a player that just blew up the combine. He's got really great film. He's a player that could play outside or inside, and I think the Chiefs could use both outside or inside help potentially there. And he's a player that I think might surprise some people who are more casual watching the NFL draft and going, what the heck? Who is Adebawore out of Northwestern? But I've got him going, sneaking into the end of the first round here at pick 31 to the Kansas City Chiefs.
No, that makes sense. I mean, on passing downs, he would line up next to Chris Jones. They're often playing with the lead. Just let him acclimate slowly, and maybe on base downs, he's your opposite end of Karlaftis. I mean, just a lot you can do with them. You're playing with the lead a lot. Go get him. Sick him. Smart, versatile.
So there we go. There's Peacock Mock Draft Monday. That is in the books. Some trades. And I'll put it on the screen here as we wrap this up for those of you watching on YouTube. And it was a lot of fun. And I always enjoy a good mock draft. So, and I appreciate you not skewering me too bad on my picks here, because
I'll let the listeners do that.
Yeah. The listeners can go ahead and skewer us here on this mock draft. And there it is on the screen for you.
Nicely
folks.
done. I like the trades too. A lot of people make trades just to make trades, but I like that your two-way trades made sense for both teams, not just, I
like the 12 to 6 move because it totally makes sense at 6. Maybe a team, it'll cost too much to move up higher than 6, I think. And those blue chippers, it might be easier to move away from at 6 than it is to move away from Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter if you still like him, and so I could see him going all the way up to 4 again. Cardinals moving twice, but I try to put my hat on for every team and see what makes sense if I was in that spot and what I project these teams to do. So there it is. There's my mock draft. If you do like it or don't like it, it's okay. Let me know at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. We're going to have a draft mailbag coming up this week as well on Peacock and Williamson. Thanks for making us your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting with the draft dudes, Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino. Check out Locked On NFL Draft And your team is covered every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.